One made beauty. The other built power. But the question remains. They started in garages. Now they shape the future of humanity. Who will lead the world of tomorrow? Apple or Microsoft? This is the final chapter, and it's not just about tech anymore. It's about you. Chapter 1. Two men. One dream. One war. They were two young men, both with big dreams, both wanting to change the world. But only one could lead the future. His name? Steve Jobs. A rebel, a dreamer, a believer in design, beauty, and control. And the other? Bill Gates. A genius, a programmer. Not flashy, but smart. Very smart. They started in small garages, typing, testing, failing, and trying again. Back in the 1970s, computers were huge, slow, and boring. But something was about to change. Forever. Jobs and Gates both wanted to bring computers to people's homes. Not just for scientists, not just for companies, for everyone. For you. For me. But they had different ideas. Steve Jobs believed in perfect design. Simple. Clean. Beautiful. He wanted to control everything. The hardware and the software. Bill Gates believed in open software. Let others build the hardware. He would focus on the code. Apple was born in 1976. Jobs launched the Apple I, then Apple II. It was a revolution. Then came the Macintosh in 1984. With a mouse. With icons. With a smile. People were amazed. A computer that was fun? Easy? Beautiful? But Gates was watching and planning. He took ideas from Apple and built his own system. Windows. Microsoft wasn't first, but it was fast. By the early 1990s, Windows was everywhere. On schools, on offices, on homes. Apple? It started to fall. Too expensive, too closed, too slow. The tech world said, Microsoft wins. Gates became the richest man on earth. But Jobs didn't give up. After being fired from his own company, he waited, watched, planned, and in 1997, he came back to Apple, stronger, smarter, and ready to fight. First came the iMac, then the iPod, then the iPhone. Boom. In 2007, Apple changed everything again. The phone became a computer, in your hand. Now it was Microsoft's turn to fall behind. Their phones failed, their tablets weak. Apple rose like a rocket. Its logo, a simple apple, became a symbol of power, style, and success. But Gates? He had already left Microsoft. He turned to charity, to health, to vaccines. And Jobs? He died in 2011, but left a legacy. Two men, one war, a war of ideas. Closed versus open, design versus code, Apple versus Microsoft. And you? Which side are you on? This was only the beginning. Chapter 2. The Copy War. Did Microsoft steal Apple's ideas? It was the 1980s. The tech world was on fire. Computers were getting smaller, faster, more personal. And Apple? They were ready to change everything. In 1984, Steve Jobs showed the world the Macintosh. It had something new, something magical. A graphical interface. No more black screens with green letters. Now, there were icons, windows, and a little thing called the mouse. People clapped. People cheered. This was the future. But one man watched quietly from the front row. Bill Gates. Yes, he smiled. Yes, he clapped. But in his mind, he saw opportunity. Gates had a deal with Apple. Microsoft was helping write some programs for the Macintosh, like Word and Excel. He had access. He saw everything. Then, something strange happened. Not long after the Macintosh launched, Microsoft announced a new project. They called it Windows. Wait, what? Windows? A system with icons, folders, and a mouse, just like the Macintosh? Steve Jobs was shocked. He felt betrayed. He called Gates to Apple HQ. He looked him in the eye. And he said, "You're stealing from us. You're copying our work." But Gates? He didn't shout. He didn't get angry. He simply replied, "Steve, I think it's more like we both had this rich neighbor named Xerox, and I broke into his house to steal the TV, only to find out you had already stolen it." Silence. Yes, Apple had also seen these ideas at Xerox PARC, a secret lab in California. That's where the graphical interface was first invented. But Apple made it better and public. Now, Microsoft was doing the same, but faster, cheaper, and for more people. The war had begun. Apple sued Microsoft. They said Windows was a copy of the Mac. The courtroom was full. Lawyers, judges, reporters. Apple said, "They stole our soul." Microsoft said, "You don't own Windows and icons." The judge? He agreed with Microsoft. The decision? Microsoft wins. The result? Windows exploded. By the early 90s, Windows 3.1 was on almost every computer. Offices, schools, governments. Apple was stuck. They made great machines, but sales were slow. Jobs? He was already out of Apple, pushed away by his own team. And Gates? He became the king of software. People asked, did Microsoft really steal it? Others said, no, they just did it better. It was more than code. It was a war of philosophy. Apple wanted control. Microsoft wanted domination. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just business. It was personal. Two young men, two different paths, and one question that still echoes today. Is copying the same as stealing, if you improve it? Chapter 3. The Return of Jobs. A fallen king rises again. They pushed him out. His own company. His own dream. In 1985, Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. Yes, fired. The board of directors chose someone else. Someone safer. Someone less wild. Jobs was heartbroken. He walked out of Apple with no power, no job, and no plan. But did he give up? Never. Steve Jobs was angry. But more than that, he was hungry. He wanted to build something new, something bigger than Apple. So he started a company called Next. It made expensive computers for schools and scientists. Not many people bought them. But the technology? It was ahead of its time. At the same time, Jobs also bought a small animation studio. You may have heard of it, Pixar. Yes, that Pixar. The one that made Toy Story, and Finding Nemo, and Cars. With Pixar, Jobs learned how to tell stories, how to build emotion, how to connect with people. And while Jobs was learning, Apple was dying. Without him, Apple lost its soul. Its products were boring. Its computers were slow. Its brand, fading. Microsoft, meanwhile, was flying high. Windows 95 was a hit. Then came Windows 98, and Gates became the richest man in the world. People said, Apple is finished. The media asked, will Microsoft take over everything? But something happened in 1997. Apple was in deep trouble. They had no direction, no vision, no future. So they called the one man who could save them. They called Steve Jobs. He walked back into Apple, calm, quiet, and focused. He didn't shout. He didn't celebrate. But inside, he was ready for revenge. The first thing he did, he cut the product line, cut the teams, cut the noise. Apple needed focus. Apple needed vision. Then, something nobody expected. Jobs stood on stage and said, we are announcing a partnership with Microsoft. What? The crowd booed. People were shocked. Microsoft? The enemy? Yes. Bill Gates agreed to invest $150 million in Apple and promised to keep making Microsoft Office for the Mac. It was not love. It was not friendship. It was survival. Jobs knew he had to win the long game. So he got to work. In 1998, Apple launched the iMac. Bright colors, bold shape, a computer that looked like art. It sold fast, very fast. Then came the iBook, then the Mac OS X. Apple was no longer boring. It was cool again. But Jobs wasn't done. He looked at the world and saw something missing. Music. CDs were dying, MP3s were messy. People were downloading music illegally. So Jobs built the answer. In 2001, he said just 5 words. One more thing. The iPod. Boom. Small. Simple. Stylish. 1,000 songs in your pocket. The iPod changed music. It saved Apple. It made Jobs a legend. He had returned. From nothing to everything. A fallen king. Now standing taller than ever. But he was just getting started. Next, he would go after the phone and change the world again. Chapter 4. The iPhone Strikes. Microsoft's Big Mistake. It was January 9th, 2007. The world was watching. Steve Jobs stood on stage in San Francisco. He looked calm. He looked confident. Then he said, "Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone." The crowd froze. A phone? From Apple? People didn't understand. Why would a computer company make a phone? But Jobs smiled. He wasn't just talking about a phone. He was talking about a revolution. Then, the screen behind him lit up, and the word appeared, iPhone. The room exploded with applause. It was a phone, a music player, and an internet communicator all in one. No buttons, just a screen, a touch screen. You could scroll, swipe, zoom, with your fingers. People had never seen anything like it. But far away, in another part of the tech world, someone was laughing. Steve Ballmer, the CEO of Microsoft. When reporters asked him about the iPhone, he laughed and said, $500 for a phone? That's the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't even have a keyboard. He thought Apple would fail. Microsoft had Windows Mobile. It was already on phones. Why worry about Apple? But Ballmer didn't understand. Jobs wasn't selling a phone. He was selling the future. And that future didn't have keyboards. It had screens, apps, touch. The iPhone was released in June 2007. People lined up outside stores. They waited all night. It sold millions, faster than anyone expected. Soon, Apple opened the App Store. Now, your phone could do anything: play music, send emails, take photos, play games. The iPhone was not just a phone anymore. It was a mini computer in your hand. Microsoft? They were shocked. Their phones looked old, slow, complicated. Windows Mobile couldn't compete. Ballmer finally realized this was war, but it was too late. Apple moved fast. The iPhone 3G, 3GS, 4, 5. Each year, better and better. And Microsoft, they tried to catch up. They launched Windows Phone in 2010. It was different. It had tiles, not icons. It looked modern. But no one cared. Developers didn't build apps for it. Users didn't buy it. Microsoft's mobile dreams? Dead. In 2013, they bought Nokia, a famous phone brand. They hoped to fight back. But 2 years later, they wrote off the deal. Billions of dollars gone. Meanwhile, Apple was rising like never before. iPhones were everywhere. In pockets, in purses, in every country. The iPhone became more than a product. It became a culture. Jobs had done it again. He didn't just return, he won. And Microsoft? They missed the most important shift in tech, the mobile revolution. All because they laughed. All because they didn't believe. In the end, it wasn't just about technology. It was about vision, about risk, about daring to dream big. And the one who dreamed bigger won. Chapter 5. The App Store War, Control, Power, and Billions. It started with just one idea. Let people build their own apps. Let them sell them to the world. In 2008, Apple launched something simple, something small, but something that would change everything. The App Store. At first, no one knew what it really was. Even Apple didn't expect it to explode. But when it opened, boom. 500 apps in one place. Games, tools, photo apps, music apps, all in your pocket. And soon, there were millions. The iPhone was no longer just a phone. It was a platform, a world, a universe, all inside your hand. Apple controlled it. Every app had to be approved. Every sale gave Apple 30% of the money. Yes, 30%. That's a lot, but people didn't care. They loved the apps. They loved the phone. And developers? They made money fast. A teenager could write a game, upload it to the App Store, and become a millionaire overnight. It was magic. But magic always comes with a price. Other companies were watching, and one of them was Microsoft. They thought, wait, why didn't we do this first? Microsoft tried. They made their own App Store, but it was too late. By the time Windows Phone came out, Apple and Android were already the kings. The war was not just about devices now. It was about ecosystems. Who controls the apps, the payments, the rules? And Apple's rules were strict. No app could break the guidelines. No app could offer cheaper prices outside the store. Everything had to go through Apple. Some called it smart. Some called it greedy. But one thing was true. Apple was making billions. And Microsoft? They were missing the party. They tried to fight. They made Surface tablets. They added a Microsoft Store. But developers didn't come. Users didn't care. Apple's App Store kept growing. By 2010, it had more than 300,000 apps. By 2015, over 1.5 million. Then came the fights. Spotify, Fortnite, Netflix, big companies. They said, Apple is too powerful. They didn't want to give 30% anymore. They wanted freedom. But Apple said no. If you want to be in the App Store, you play by our rules. It became a legal war. Apple versus Epic Games. Apple versus governments. Apple versus developers. Was Apple helping people or controlling them? Even Microsoft joined the fight. They said Apple's rules were anti-competitive. They wanted change. But Jobs was gone, and Apple didn't move. They liked control. They built the garden. Now they would guard it. So what happened? People kept buying iPhones. They kept downloading apps. They kept spending money. Because deep inside, they liked things to work. Safe, smooth, easy. And that's what Apple gave them. The App Store wasn't just a business. It was a gateway to music, to games, to work, to love, to life, all in one place, all under one company, Apple. And Microsoft? They learned a lesson. Whoever controls the store controls the world. Chapter 6, Cloud Wars. Microsoft strikes back. For years, Microsoft was losing. The phone war? Lost. The app war? Lost. The cool factor? Gone. People said Microsoft was too slow, too old, too late. But Microsoft wasn't dead. It was changing. Quietly. Carefully. And in 2014, something big happened. Satya Nadella became the new CEO. He was different from Steve Ballmer. Calm, smart, focused. He didn't care about winning phones. He didn't want to copy Apple anymore. He saw something else. The cloud. While Apple was focused on iPhones, iPads, and shiny screens, Nadella looked to the sky, the digital sky. Cloud computing. What is it? It means no more saving files on your device, no more carrying hard drives. Everything, your photos, your work, your data, lives online. And Microsoft had the tools. Their product was called Azure, a quiet giant, invisible, but powerful. Companies started moving to the cloud. Banks, hospitals, governments, all needed storage, power, security, and Microsoft gave it to them. Fast, reliable, global. Suddenly, Microsoft was back, but not in your pocket, not in your hand. They were in the background, running the systems, powering the apps, serving the internet. They called it Cloud First, Mobile Second. And it worked. By 2020, Microsoft's cloud business made more money than Windows, more than Xbox, more than Office. Even Apple used some Microsoft cloud services. Strange, isn't it? The old enemy, now behind the scenes, and Nadella? He didn't laugh. He didn't shout. He just worked. Quiet and rich. Microsoft also brought Office to iPhones and iPads. Yes, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Before, they only worked on Windows. Now, they were everywhere. Nadella said, "We don't care what device you use, we'll be there." Smart move. Apple still made beautiful devices, but Microsoft made the tools. The cloud war was different. No ads, no crowds, no lines outside stores. Just contracts, servers, big money. And in this new war, Microsoft was winning. They weren't fighting Apple directly. They were building something bigger, something deeper. But Apple didn't stand still. They built their own services too. iCloud, Apple Music, Apple TV Plus. They tried to grow beyond hardware, to become a cloud company too. But it was hard. People still saw Apple as the device company, the iPhone company. Microsoft had become something else. A platform, a partner, a power. They helped others grow and got rich doing it. The tech war had changed. No more keyboards versus touchscreens. No more Apple versus Windows. Now it was about data, servers, speed, and the quiet war in the cloud had only just begun. Chapter 7. AI and the Next Battle. Who will lead the future? The year is 2023. A new war has begun. But this time, it's not about phones, not about computers, not even about the cloud. This time, it's about artificial intelligence. Yes, AI. Machines that can write, machines that can think, machines that can talk, almost like humans. And at the center of this new war? Microsoft. In early 2023, Microsoft shocked the world. They made a deal with a company called OpenAI. Maybe you've heard of it. OpenAI created ChatGPT, a chatbot that could write emails, tell stories, answer questions, and more. People were amazed. Was this the future? Microsoft thought so. They quickly added AI to their products. To Word, Excel, Teams, even Bing, their old search engine. Suddenly, Bing was cool again. They called it Copilot, an assistant inside your apps. It could help you work faster, write better, think smarter. And Apple? Apple was silent. For over a year, they said almost nothing about AI. No big announcements, no ChatGPT, no AI magic. People started asking, is Apple behind? In 2024, Tim Cook finally spoke. He said, "We are investing deeply in AI, but we don't want to rush. We want to do it the Apple way, safe and private." It made sense. Apple cares about design, about user privacy, about control. But the world was moving fast. AI was now in cars, in hospitals, in homes. Google had its own AI. Amazon had one too. But Microsoft? They had the biggest move. They became the main investor in OpenAI and brought AI to millions of people in just weeks. In the background, Apple was working on its own tools. AI in the iPhone, AI in Siri, AI in photos and messages. But it felt slow. And people were watching. Would Apple fall behind again, like in the cloud war? Or Were they planning something bigger? In mid-2025, rumors spread fast. Apple was building something new. Not just a chatbot, not just a smart assistant, but a new kind of device. A mix of iPhone, AirPods, and AI, all in one. A real-time translator, a life coach, a health monitor. Whispers called it Apple Sense. Nothing official yet, but if true, it could change everything. Microsoft, meanwhile, kept growing. They built AI chips, new AI apps, and smart business tools. Their goal? Not to beat Apple in design, but to win in the workplace, to become the brain behind every company. Two giants, two different roads. Apple focuses on the individual. Microsoft focuses on the enterprise. But both want one thing: to lead the future. And in the future, whoever controls AI controls everything. The way we work, the way we learn, the way we live. This is not just a tech war anymore. This is a war for the mind, for trust, for power. And the question is, will Apple stay silent or strike back with something we've never seen? Chapter 8. Vision Pro and the World Beyond Screens. For years, we stared at screens. Phone screens, laptop screens, TVs, tablets, watches. Everywhere we looked, there was a screen. But in 2023, Apple said, what if we looked beyond the screen? And with that question, they revealed something new. Apple Vision Pro. Not a phone, not a headset for games, something different. They called it a spatial computer. What does that mean? It means a computer. For your eyes, for your space, for the air around you. You wear it like glasses, but you see apps floating in front of you. No keyboard, no mouse, no hands. You control everything with your eyes and your voice. Look at an app. It opens. Blink or tap your fingers. It reacts. Say, play video, and it plays. Magic? Number Apple. The Vision Pro wasn't just another product. It was a new world. You could watch movies on a giant screen while sitting in a small room. You could FaceTime your family and see their faces in life-size 3D. You could work on documents while floating in a mountain view, all virtual. And Apple had one big word for it: presence. It wasn't just about what you saw. It was about what you felt. Like you were really there. But it came with a price. $3,500. Yes, more than most people's rent. More than some used cars. People asked, who will buy this? And Apple answered, creators, designers, leaders, dreamers. Vision Pro wasn't made for everyone, yet. It was a beginning, just like the first iPhone. And Microsoft? They had tried this before. In 2016, they launched HoloLens, a smart headset. It used augmented reality, showing virtual things in the real world. It was impressive, but expensive, and not many people used it. Mostly soldiers, engineers, doctors. Now, Apple was doing it again, but with style, with the Apple brand, with the Apple ecosystem, with the Apple magic. Microsoft watched carefully. They said, "We've been here before." But Apple said, "Now the world is ready." The battle was no longer just phones versus phones, or cloud versus cloud. Now, it was about the next reality. What comes after screens? After apps? After phones? Will we live in a world of spatial computing? Will we work in 3D spaces? Will we meet friends in virtual cafes? The Vision Pro was just the start. But Apple had one big advantage: control. They owned the hardware, the software, the App Store, the experience. Microsoft? They had great tools, but no magic product. At least not yet. Some people said Vision Pro would fail. Too expensive, too strange. Others said, "This is the future," just like the iPhone was. And in this new future, Apple wants to lead the experience. Microsoft wants to power the infrastructure. Two titans, two strategies, one world, changing fast. And as we take off our old screens and put on new ones, one question remains. Who will build the world we live in, and who will control it? Chapter 9. One Vision, Two Giants. What the future holds. Two companies. Two dreams. One world. For more than 40 years, Apple and Microsoft have battled. Not always with fists, but with ideas, with products, with power. They started in garages, with wires, wood, and big hope. Now, they build cities, move markets, shape human life. Steve Jobs is gone. Bill Gates has stepped away, but their visions still live. Apple, smooth, stylish, closed. Microsoft, wide, practical, open. One is emotion. One is logic. One lives in your hand. The other lives in the background. Both want to shape the future. So, what comes next? AI is here. Cloud is everywhere. The screen is becoming a space. But that's not the full story. There's something deeper now. Trust. Who do we trust with our data? Our thoughts? Our health? Our children? Apple says, "We protect your privacy." Microsoft says, "We empower every person and every organization." And in the middle, you, the user, the learner, the future builder. You choose the tools. You decide what matters. The fight is no longer about who wins. It's about what kind of world we want. A world of beauty or a world of access? A world where devices feel like art or a world where tools connect billions? The truth? We need both. Apple and Microsoft no longer hate each other. They sometimes work together, sometimes compete. They are not enemies. They are mirrors. Each pushes the other to improve. Each fills what the other lacks, and the world keeps changing. Children today grow up touching screens, talking to AI, wearing computers on their faces. And tomorrow? They may learn, love, work, all in virtual space. So, what do we need from these tech giants? Not just more products, not just better apps, but wisdom, responsibility, humanity. Technology must not only make us faster, it must make us better. That's the true future, the real revolution. And maybe, just maybe, the war between Apple and Microsoft wasn't a war at all. Maybe it was a dance. One leading, the other following. One falling, the other rising, then switching places again and again. And through it all, we grew. We learned. We connected. Because of them. Because of this long, strange, brilliant battle. The battle that changed the world. And now, it's your turn. Your ideas, your voice, your vision.